What's going on, guys? The Arid Lord is here, and for my normal viewers and fans, this is a departure video, but for me, it's a return to a series, a saga that is very near and dear to my heart. I can remember being a 5th grader many years ago, let's see, around the time that Star Wars Episode 3 came out, Revenge of the Sith. Just about everything in my room, from the carpet to the walls, was covered in Star Wars memorabilia. I had 4 posters from Episode 3, the movie, Revenge of the Sith. I had a lamp. I had a comforter, bed sheets, just about everything you can imagine. I really wish I had a picture of it, but I didn't think to take a picture of it when I was a kid, and nor did my parents, and all that stuff has since been donated, but it's really the greatest evidence of my, the absolute Star Wars mania that I was in. Probably around the time the prequels came out. I was a kid when the prequels came out first, that 99 to 2005 period. So for anyone who's older, who watched the original trilogy when that first came out, and then had high expectations of what the prequels should have been, I wasn't on the same wavelength because I watched pretty much the originals and the prequels kind of like together, so they kind of just overlapped. And as a kid, understanding complex plot points and character arcs wasn't exactly in my cognitive function for that youthful age. So only years later can I appreciate them and place them in comparison beside one another as to which really accomplished the greatest feat in terms of storytelling, in terms of filmmaking. But I gotta be honest, I have seen, so since Episode 2, I have seen every Star Wars, numbered Star Wars movie. We're talking episodes 1 through 8. I have seen episodes 2, 3, 7, and 8. Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, The Force Awakens, and The Last Jedi. I have seen all those films on day of release, alright? Either midnight or as soon as the theaters open the next day. I was in the theaters watching the newest Star Wars. So, I can tell you that when I say this, that I am just... I'll get to the point of this video. The title says it all. Anyone who's watching this knows exactly what I'm going to say. I am boycotting Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker Episode 9. I will not be going to the premiere. I will not be going to the movie theaters, period. Clips on YouTube, spoilers on Reddit, whatever I need to see to look up what happens in this movie is fine by me. But even so, I don't even know if I'll do that much research. To be quite frank, I just don't care. This shouldn't come as a surprise to too many of my viewers. If you saw 2 years ago, and I'll link it in this video, 2 years ago, directly after coming back from the premiere of Episode 8, I made a vlog in which I aired all of my immediate grievances. Now, my grievances were very spur of the moment. I also had a friend with me who had been drinking all day at a company party, so he wasn't exactly in the greatest mindset to be giving opinions. So, if you go watch that video, I'm going to leave the link in the description. If you do want to see my Last Jedi review from 2 years ago, just be warned that, I'm cognitive and functional through it, but he was a little tipsy, so not everything is cohesive as it should be. But I believe, I'll have to look back at my history, I believe I made another follow-up video where it was just me, and I had a little bit of time to process it, and I wanted to go back and voice how many problems I had with the film, because it really felt like Episode 8 was my Jar Jar Binks. You know, everyone who watched the original movies, 4, 5, and 6, whom I mentioned at the beginning of this vlog, Jar Jar Binks and the events, the way Episode 1 went about, that was very much their disappointing Star Wars moment. If any of you have seen the documentary Star Wars, Lucas vs. the People, it covers that. It covers the hype, the build-up towards a Phantom Menace, and how people thought it was going to be the greatest film that had ever existed in the history of films, and it went a different direction that maybe people just weren't expecting. I'm not going into the past, but what I am going to do is just kind of tell you guys, like, ever since Disney bought Star Wars from George Lucas, I knew that there was going to be trouble. And I actually wrote this in a YouTube comment on a Star Wars Episode 9 review. There's like some of the YouTube reviewers, like Jeremy Johns and some of the other notable, I'm not sure if that Star Wars girl, Anna, has watched it yet, but I know that some of the larger YouTubers have had early access to the film, so they've been putting out their opinions. Rotten Tomatoes, a whole bunch of major reviewers from Forbes and other websites have been putting out their reviews, and it's been getting that average score. I think it's around like 56%, around that rating. But just me personally, thinking back to everything that I just didn't like about Episode 8, and thinking about the decision originally when Disney bought Star Wars from George Lucas, I could tell that this was going to happen. And to get back to what I was saying, the YouTube comment that I made on, I believe it might have been Jeremy Johns' review, I said that think about the first 6 movies as, if any of you have played video games, a lot of people who watch Star Wars typically do, even some Star Wars video games. You could even, this actually applies to Star Wars. So the Battlefront series, Star Wars Battlefront, is an acclaimed series, a classic PlayStation 2 series that came out around the 04-05 period. It was originally developed by Pandemic Studios. They developed the game. Now, Pandemic Studios, along with their parent producer, corporate parent, THQ, went out of business around, I think it was like 2008, 2010-ish period. So a new company was going to make the Battlefront series, and EA saw money in the deal. So rather than try to piece together an old company or maybe just move on, they wanted to revive an old popular franchise. So the way I tell people is that think about episodes 7, 8, and 9 as a reboot. That you could almost consider it non-canon in a way. I know that Disney would argue that they've had the blessing of George Lucas and many other factors. The fact that the original cast from A New Hope, Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher before her passing, I know they're all part of it and they signed on to it, but, not without reservations. It was widely, it was breaking the internet 2 years ago when Mark Hamill was voicing how much he fundamentally disagreed with Rian Johnson about the arc of Luke in Episode 8, about how reclusive he was, how he had seemingly given up on the Force, how a man who saw the goodness in his father, a mass murderer, secondhand to the Emperor, had carried out multiple atrocities, that Luke thought that this guy had some goodness deep down inside of him, and Luke was willing to sacrifice his own life, take all these risks to prove that. And in Episode 8, when he's telling the backstory of how Kylo Ren turned to the dark side, he sensed a little bit of dark side inside of Kylo Ren and then decided to kill him because of that hunch. And then Kylo Ren saw that and ran away. It's all the backstory we got in Episode 8 that was absolutely atrocious. And again, I won't go into a full review of Episode 8. If you want that, I will leave the link in the description. All right? But the issue with Episode 9 is that before even watching this film, I just feel like it's going to be... something's going to get left out. Something's going to get cut. Something's going to get left out because you have so many unanswered questions from Episode 8 and Episode 7 that the audience wants to know. Not to mention the fact that J.J. Abrams is going to spend a lot of time undoing the things that Rian Johnson did. I've read from multiple reviewers today that a lot of episode 9 is spent giving half answers, half examples, half truths to some things that Ryan set up that they didn't want to explore. Again, this was the problem with having 3 different directors do these Star Wars films. You had J.J. Abrams for episode 7. And for all intents and purposes, I enjoyed episode 7. It was A New Hope 2.0. It had the same plot about a droid with secret plans. An unlikely hero not connected to the larger conflict gets involved. There's a super massive weapon that's destroyed a planet, and somehow the resistance group has to lead an effort to take out the giant planet, and a mentor character is killed along the way. The Force Awakens pretty much just took the major beats of A New Hope and recycled it into their film. Going into episode 8, I was thinking, will they just take The Empire Strikes Back and do the same thing? Yes and no, but episode 8 is its own monster, so I don't want to get into all the reasons why that film was such an atrocity. But the problem is that episode 9 is trying to rewrite the Rian Johnson retcon, the Rian Johnson canon. They're almost saying that so much of the stuff that happened in episode 8 is non-canon. I almost thought, and you would break the 3-episode formula, where it takes a trilogy of movies to tell the complete story of the characters you have, hence the prequels, hence 4, 5, and 6. I almost thought that they should have an episode 10, where you have episode 9 be like episode 8 2.0, where that's the middle episode where we build up the plot, and then we can have another Star Wars movie that really concludes the whole thing. Disney loves to print money, so I can't imagine that idea didn't run around somebody's head. But the problem with episode 9 is that it's going to shove so much information of what we missed, what wasn't explained about the Knights of Ren, about Kylo, about how he met Snoke, about who the hell Snoke even was, if they're even going to address it. Lots of different stuff. And then you have the addition of Darth Sidious, the main antagonist from the original films, and now they're going to have to explain in some coherent fashion, some logical explanation as to how the evil emperor, the main antagonist from the original films, somehow survived. That is the biggest pinnacle moment. The chosen one of the original trilogy, Darth Vader's redemption, is killing the ultimate force of evil in Emperor Palpatine and saving his son. Now you're saying that was all for nothing and that the Emperor actually is still alive. Like, it cancels out a critical moment in film history where Darth Vader turns back to the good side and saves his son, because we know that the guy he seemingly killed is not actually dead and is I've heard rumors that he's potentially a clone, that he was just using, like, he used some dark power to teleport or something. I don't know. I don't know. And if you want my opinion, if you ask people in 1983, if you ask George Lucas, if you ask the team, is Darth Sidious dead? They would have said collectively, yes. Emperor Palpatine, the evil emperor of the galaxy, is dead. He fell down the chute, got blown up in the reactor core, then the Death Star exploded when the Rebel Alliance took it out, and then no more Darth Sidious. It wasn't until 30 years later where everyone's like, well, we need a compelling reason for fans to come back and watch this film. A lot of people were angry with Episode 8. They lost their big villain in Snoke. So who is gonna be the villain this time? Well, could it be Kylo Ren? That would be a little confusing because Kylo Ren's supposed to have a Darth Vader-esque redemption arc. So who's gonna be our villain? I know! Let's take the most popular villain in all of Star Wars history and reinsert him into our final episode. How are we going to do that when we clearly establish that he's already dead? I don't know. Maybe we don't even have to have an explanation. Maybe it's good enough for the audience to see some pretty lightning effects, some pretty Star Destroyers, whatever it is. We'll just have the audience take a look and be wowed by our impressive CGI budget, and that's going to be good enough for the fans. This is all based on I haven't seen episode 9 yet. I'm just explaining why I'm boycotting it, because I'm just frustrated how Star Wars turned into the classic. It's almost as classic as Shakespeare at this point. The classic tragic hero tale. The tale of Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one, and his fall to the dark side, and how he had to redeem himself and come full circle to balance the Force. That's the classic story of Star Wars. And then you have all the additional stuff of the fighters, the Millennium Falcon, the lightsabers. You have all of the lore and all the lore characters that we all have come to love, that have inspired so much entertainment over the years. It's now turned into just a cash cow. That's what it is. It's Disney's cash cow, and they don't know how to handle it. Because Disney does all the stuff with the Avengers universe and Marvel, and that is a very well-handled universe. There's a million superhero films, but once you watch them in order and understand how that whole universe is handled, it's a very logical, fun, immersive, action-packed experience. This stuff with Star Wars doesn't happen with the Avengers series. It just doesn't. The Avengers Endgame, great ending. Most people will tell you it's a great ending. And it was a great story from the original Iron Man in 2008 all the way to 2019, where we had Avengers Endgame conclude the Tony Stark Avengers, that initial group, okay? But if you ask people, like, so Star Wars, unanimously, people are going to be like, episode 7, episode 8 was trash. I don't know if I'm seeing 9. Episode 8 took the winds out of the sail. I feel like myself and a lot of people had hopes. A new hope. We had a new hope. Even though episode 7 was a carbon copy of A New Hope, we still had a new hope that there would be a new hope in Star Wars in terms of where the series was going, how Disney was handling it. Even Rogue One was a very, very worthy prequel. That was a very good film to bridge the gap between episode 3 and 4. Really take it, all of the fun scenes, like with Darth Vader killing all those rebel troopers. It was just, you had a lot of throwbacks and homages and Easter eggs, and Star Wars fans love that, and Disney loves to make money off of that. But if that's all episode 9 is going to be, like throwing in a classic villain who was already killed off just to make some money, and you're trying to establish relationships with characters. I mean, think about that Rey and Finn were in 0 scenes in episode 8, except for the ending where they reunite on the Millennium Falcon. That was literally the only time those two critical characters had any types of scene together. It's they're just trying to do too much in episode 9. They're trying to expand characters. They're trying to bring back Emperor Palpatine, give Kylo Ren his arc, explain the Knights of Ren, give Princess Leia a send-off because Carrie Fisher's gone. It's like, oh my gosh, I just can't see this film being anything but a flaming pile of crap at the end of the day. All I see is just disaster. I'm just seeing warning signs on the bridge that it's going to be an absolute disaster if I cross it. So I'm saying, that's it. I'm boycotting this film. I ain't dealing with it. So that's really all I got to say. I would love nothing more than to watch episode 9 and go on a 20-minute tirade of why it's horrible. But I'm only going to prove myself right, because I already know I'm going in with low expectations. With every other Star Wars film, I had high expectations. Every single one. And then after episode 8, I was like, oh dear. Oh, what happened? And apparently, and I said this in my review 2 years ago, apparently J.J. Abrams had a script for episode 8, and then Rian Johnson got his gritty little hands on it and said, nope, I want to do things my way. I want to have this whole slavery casino scene, and I want women empowerment, and it just tore up. Yeah, what? Let the past die? Yeah, just, it was that. Yeah, Rian Johnson was infusing his own fanboyism into episode 8, rather than letting the story that was meant to be told be told. Like, this is Star Wars. We know what this is. Reinventing it into your own glorious image it's not Star Wars. Call it something else, but it ain't Star Wars. So, man, I just, if they had just had J.J. Abrams direct, I mean, because look, he directed 2 out of 3 of the films, and originally a different director was supposed to do episode 9, and then that fell apart, and then freaking Abrams stepped in. It's like, well, if Abrams did 2 of the 3 films, why didn't he do 8? Like episode 8 is the bridge between the first of the trilogy and the last one of the trilogy, and you let this blithering idiot in Rian Johnson, who has made decent films in other areas. He directed an episode of Breaking Bad. He's put out other decent films. But you let this guy he was clearly a fanboy of Star Wars, as many of us are, but you let him just go wild on what he wanted to do. There were no restrictions. Kathleen Kennedy, no one at Disney put a freaking pacifier in Rian Johnson's mouth and stopped him from making this series whatever he wanted it to be. It is just so disappointing that they really had a potential to reboot Star Wars and not just have it be a cash cow. You can make millions of dollars off of Star Wars and still have a great story. I just explained Avengers. That movie's making bazillions of dollars and it has a great story. I would watch it again. I would buy it on Blu-ray. It was good. It's making a lot of money. Awesome. It deserves to make a lot of money. These new Star Wars films don't deserve to make money. I would love nothing more than for episode 9 to tank in the box offices and for Disney execs to be like, what? I thought people liked Star Wars. Like, I would love nothing more than for there to be an audience, fan feedback on episode 8 and what they're doing with Star Wars in general. To say, no, no, no. Enough. Just stop. Now that the trilogy, I mean, because this is over one way or another. 9 is over. There's no more freaking Skywalker trilogy and nothing. Whatever films they had, the guys from Game of Thrones were going to do, whatever they got going on, have it take place in another galaxy so far away it can't even sniff the asshole of Luke fucking Skywalker, okay? Just make it separate and stop stepping all over characters we've established over years, villains we've established over years, plot lines, stories, the whole thing. Drop it. It's over. Ugh. Alright, that's it from me. I'm not seeing Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, and I highly encourage you to do the same thing. Fuck this movie. Fuck Kathleen Kennedy and Disney. I don't know what they did to this series. I love Star Wars. The prequels were questionable. George Lucas had a bit of an ego trip in some parts, but he still had a vision. He wanted to conclude Anakin's story. He did it with the romance in whatever way he saw fit. We can pick it apart, yes, but it was still had good action. It had a cohesive story, even though nobody, there were some people who didn't agree with how it was carried out. It was still a cohesive story that had a lot of interesting puzzle pieces in the mix. Okay, but what we have now is it's not working. It's not working, and we move on. It's done. It's done. Move on from it. I don't want to talk about episode 9 anymore. I ain't seeing it. Peace out. Goodbye. Discussion in the comments. Comment, like, rate, subscribe. All right. I'm out. Peace.